The No Nonsense Roundtable. It's a weekly show broadcast on Rochester, New York's 50,000-watt iHeart radio station, News Radio Wham 1180. The host, Dom Geneva, interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. What you are about to hear is a recording of a previous broadcast with limited commercials. Now, here's host, Dom Geneva.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of your No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Geneva, your host, every Saturday right here at 10 o'clock. And all our previous shows are on nononsenseroundtable.com. Now, the show, as you know, is about people you know, you want to know more about, and people you don't know, but you should know. So I have somebody I think is probably in the second category now, and his name is Paul Celuch. Is that the way you pronounce it?
That's correct, Dom. Yep.
Okay. And Paul is a really fascinating fellow. He has a fascinating story in his life and how he got to do what he's doing now. And we're going to be talking about, colleges and what you need to know about the admission process, the financial part of it, the ins and outs of navigating getting your kid into the right college at the right price at the right time with as little angst and anxiety as you can. Did I explain that probably pretty correctly for you?
I think you did, Dom. I think what I like to say I do is complement what the guidance counselors do with the students and can't do because of some of the limitations they have on being able to discuss finances with the students and, of course, then the parents.
Well, if I was to put this in a way, you're kind of like a guide and a Sherpa. You know, you're helping them through this journey that they may not. You know, the learning curve on this has got to kill you if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, so it's a rather significant journey.
As we talked earlier, you know, when I started this business 20 years ago, there was $200 billion in student loans. Today, there's $1.8 trillion. Now, we throw numbers around in this country like it's chicken feed, but that's a lot of student loans, and there's really no help. I have clients now, parents of students who are in their 50s still paying back student loans, and that's just a tragedy, I think.
Well, it is, like I said, it's capturing so many people and causing so many problems. But let me get to my silly little question I like to ask first all the time too. You know, like how did you get where you are today? I mean, what did you want to do when you were a kid? And tell me. I mean, you moved like 15 or 17 times. You told me too, working for a big company. But let's start out. What did you want to do? I don't think you were 10 years old and said you wanted to have a company that guided people through college processes.
No, as we said earlier, if my mom were still alive, she said he always wanted to be a cowboy, but I never went in that direction. But we have moved a lot. We have 7 different houses, and I was with an IBM executive for 18 years. And then I had, I've been fired a few times. I was an executive with Rochester Telephone, a lot of communication companies when that was in vogue. So I've had a lot of different experiences. I worked for companies in North Carolina, Florida, California. But what really struck me is, I think I mentioned this to you earlier, I was on the board of a college that my son attended. And I saw how little they understood about how difficult it was for families to come up with the money. And this was when this particular college was $16,000, $17,000 a year, and this college is $65,000 a year. So I don't think there's a lot of realization on the part of parents and also people who run colleges about how difficult it is to pay for this. When I started this business, for instance, Syracuse University was $30,000 a year. Now it's $85,000 a year. I mean, it's 85. Like you said the other day when we were talking about your children, if you said to one of those young people at 17, I'm looking at paying $300,000 to $400,000 for your college, your undergrad degree, that's a pretty striking amount of money. And I don't think as a 17-year-old, very few 17-year-olds understand how expensive that is, and because of the easy availability of loans, it's just signing your name on a piece of paper, and that's where we get into the $1.8 trillion in student loans.
So, what do you say is the number one? When did it change, and why did it change? I mean, Was it gradual that things got this expensive and this big of a problem, or was there a precipitous point?
Well, I think the government funds a lot of it. You know, we mentioned earlier how the government forces programs on colleges, which really are not. I don't know if they add a lot to the educational experience. You know, a lot of it's just the continual up pricing of everything in America. I mean, we were talking about houses earlier. I mean, goodness gracious. Who would have thought we'd be? I had a home in Bergen County, New Jersey, that my wife and I bought in 78 or 79 for $175,000. It just sold for $1.2 million. So what drives that? You know, it's. I think the bigger issue I see in the college world is you have a 17-year-old who the parent wants the best for him or her. And they're visiting colleges right now. In fact, you know, we're in the autumn time frame here. This is when people are going to colleges, and what we try to do is get in front of that process and say, listen, don't take your son or daughter to Boston College if you can't afford $300,000. Let us guide you on what schools make the most sense. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we negotiate with the colleges for better packages, and we've been very successful. Last year, we saved our clients. We have thousands of clients. We saved almost $5 million in negotiating money. And you, as a former entrepreneur car dealer, understands what negotiation is. It's really powerful.
Well, before we get too far into the weeds, let's talk about the name of your company. It's College Assistant Plus. Is that it?
It is, yes. And we're in Honey Falls. Yep.
And you say you have franchised this?
No, we did franchise back about 10 years ago. We had 7 or 8 franchises throughout the country, very successful. But you know, because you have a business experience, franchising in New York State is a very difficult thing. It's a nightmare.
Oh, I absolutely. So what I heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you not only give them advice, but you help them negotiate with the college itself?
Yes, great question. Let me tell you how we do that. And you know, you've had the experience with your daughter, so you'll understand this. So say a student wants to be an engineer or something technical, and they're looking at Clarkson, Worcester Poly, RPI, schools like that. We would say, okay, that's fine. Let us look at your income. Let us tell you some schools that you might want to think about. In fact, I just did this with a student who wants to go to Clarkson, and I had her apply to a school most people on this program have never heard of. It's called the University of Missouri Science and Technology. It's in Rolla, Missouri, and it's a very selective school, same level academically as Clarkson, but it's $48,000 a year, and they want kids from the Northeast, so they give $20,000 scholarships. So we can get an offer for that young lady for $28,000 vis-a-vis the Clarkson package of almost 70, and go back to Clarkson and say, look, we got a better deal. Now, we're not trying to send that young lady to Missouri. We're just saying, it's just like the car analogy, right? I mean, you know, if you're, I always say to people, the metaphor I use is, listen, if you're looking at an Acura, you don't go and say, I'm looking at a Chevy. You say, I'm looking at a Mercedes or a Lexus. So we categorize 5,000 colleges in what we call competitive comparisons, and there's not a school that we can't compete with. We've proven it.
This is fascinating, and we're about ready to head into a break. But how do people pay you?
Well, it's an upfront fee. You know, it's a couple $1,000s.
Okay,
a couple $1,000, but it's.
And how many people do you serve a year?
300.
Wow.
300 families. We've been in business 20 years, so we've got a lot of. But the other thing we do, which is really important, and you alluded to this earlier when we were chatting, we work with the student all the way through to get a job. I find that colleges, Dom, are extremely, and I don't mean to be critical, there are great schools out there like RIT. We were blessed with a school like that. But they don't really, well, let me give you a story. So I had a call this summer from a woman who heard about us. She's from Tampa, Florida. She said, my daughter's about to graduate Nazareth, great school, and she's got a degree in psychology, and she can't find a job. Can you help her? I said, sure. So for a small amount of money, $500, I said, sure, I'll help her. I met with a young lady in the Starbucks in Pittsford, striking young lady. She was an All-American volleyball player at Nazareth. And I said, well, what do you want to do? You know, I said, a degree. You can't do anything with an undergrad in psychology. You got to go on for a graduate degree. She said, I don't want to do that. I said, well, how about this? Let me help you get a job as a salesperson. I said, this kid is going to be lights out. So I got her a job at Paychex. I've got a lot of connections there. And she was making, she could have made $60,000. Her boss told me. But her mother called me a couple months later and said, Jessica's not there anymore. I said, well, what happened? Because I lost touch with her. She said, well, she wanted to move back to Syracuse. That's where her boyfriend is from. And she quit her job. So now she's working as a healthcare aide for, $11 an hour, $12 an hour. But that's, if you don't know why you're going to college, it's really, really critical. And we try to educate the student and parents. Listen, you got to have a job after school. And like I mentioned earlier, Don, with West Virginia University, they just fired the head of the puppetry department. Puppetry
of all things. We'll be right back to talk more after this. This is Dom Genova from my friends at Jack Greco Furniture. Like I like to say, you buy a car every couple of years, you probably take your money and put it into furniture for, decades. Now, go someplace where they treat you right and they have good stuff. Not like these big box stores. Go to Jack Greco. And this is the end of the year. They have closeout savings on their outdoor furniture. Hey, the winter's not going to last forever. It's going to seem that way, but it's not going to last forever. Go see Jack Greco. This is Dom Genova from my friends at Martin Ising Dry Cleaning in Fairport. Well, it's that time again. You're starting to wear long sleeve shirts. You got to schlep them to the dry cleaner and schlep them. Well, no, you don't. No, you don't. You do what I do. You call Martin Ising Dry Cleaning in Fairport. They pick them up and they drop them off, and they do a great job. Their Google rating is 4.9 out of 5. You can, oh my God, it's amazing. Their number is 425-4242. 425-4242. I use them. You should use them. Well, welcome back. We're talking to Paul Celuch, who has a company, College Assistant Plus, which helps you pick a college that you can afford for your child. One of the things, one of my thoughts, my philosophies about this whole thing is that why are you going to college?
Amen.
Why are you going to college? Now, the way I word it is this, okay? You can go to college to get an education, but the education may not necessarily give you a marketable skill.
Amen.
And if you have to have, and I'd like to hear what you think about this. There is a cost risk decision that you have to make. You can go for puppetry. You might be very good at puppetry. Right. You might get a job in puppetry, but how much is puppetry going to pay you? Right. And if you have a $250,000 debt, the numbers, those lines don't line up. Now, I have a son-in-law who went to school to learn law. Okay, a daughter, same thing, law. You got a degree in law. You're a practicing lawyer. He has student debt. Fine, because he has a skill that's helping to pay
marketable skill.
A marketable skill. And I mean, don't you see that a lot? That the kid wants to do X and
let me tell you,
and you can't get a job in X.
That's a tremendous issue, I think, with young people. The way we overcome that. We have thousands of clients who are successful. The parents of other clients, as well as I have a lot of people who are clients from L3 Harris in Rochester. And when a kid wants to be an engineer, in fact, I got a text, I'll show you later, from a young lady from Brighton. She said to me, Mr. Celuch, I'm just about to graduate U of R, and thank you so much for connecting me years ago with L3 Harris. They just hired me. What we do, Don, if somebody, like you said, if one of your kids wanted to be a lawyer, we'd say, okay, let us connect you. And I script the call. I say, I want you to call a lawyer and I want you to ask him or her these questions. I actually script the call with the student. And that's so powerful because I've had people say, I talked to that architect and he said to me, if I had my life to do all over again, I wouldn't be an architect. But that's not bad, Dom. That's not a bad thing to have happen. So we do that with every one of our clients. We say, before you make school is one part of the decision, but you got to, 40% of students graduate in 5 years or more because they change their majors multiple times. Nobody understands that. I'm talking about an undergrad degree in 5 years. So it's really important, and the wisdom you just articulated is, why are you going to college? What's the marketable skill that you're going to have afterwards? So we mandate that our clients do that, their students do that. They have to talk to people who are doing what they anticipate to their career path to be.
Well, and what you're good at. I mean, originally I went to St. Bonaventure to be in engineering. In my first semester, I got a 178. So, I mean, even if I graduated, I would have killed somebody or failed or been bankrupt. And I decided to go into management, and that kind of worked. That kind of worked out okay for me. But that's the other side of this. I have to ask you. You talk about this puppetry thing. Okay, and that's humorous. That's interesting and humorous. But I mean, are there more? These crazy majors than there were years ago too. I mean, you have some of these, the study in XYZ,
yes.
Right?
There are fallacious majors that don't make sense, but more powerfully is, I think, if you need a graduate degree in what you're going for. Right, like a lawyer, you're not going to get a bachelor's and become a lawyer. So the graduate degree. Now, what most people don't realize, when you go for our graduate studies, you're emancipated financially. That doesn't mean your parents can't help you, but now you're on the hook for this. In fact, I went to the dentist in Honey Falls, real nice guy, and I said, where'd you go to school? After he was cleaning my teeth, he said, I went to UB. He's from Buffalo, and UB for dental school. I said, Dennis, you made a great decision. He said, you're the first person in 14 years asked me where I went to college. And I said, you know what we tell people? Nobody will ever ask you where you got your undergrad if you have a grad degree. Yeah. So the grad degree, so why spend all that money for Syracuse or U of R on your undergrad when you could go to a SUNY school and then go on to the U of R in Syracuse for your grad degree. So we try. The other thing that people don't realize is, this is really powerful, and you'll understand this as a businessman. If you're a transfer student, you're worth more to the college. A successful transfer student, you're worth more to the college than you are if you just go in as a freshman. So if you go to Finger Lakes Community College or MCC for one semester, take gen ed courses and do A or B work, colleges will kill for you because you're backfilling for an attrited freshman now. You see what I mean? So we say to people, if you don't know what you want to do, that's okay. Why don't you go to community college and just take some courses and let us get you transferred in. In fact, I won't mention the school, but one of my clients is the vice president of admissions at a school on a beautiful Finger Lake that you and I know well. And she said to me, we lose 21% of our freshmen. I said, how does that happen? She said, well, kids come up here, they see the lake, they say a beautiful fall day, they say, this is where I want to go. And then the first weekend, there's one bar and one coffee shop, and they hate it. So they go back to New York City. So she said, we lose 21% of our students. So if you transfer in, you're more valuable to that college because now they can give you some of the grant and scholarship money that they gave the attrited freshmen, and you're worth more to them. So we use every different strategy you can employ. It's really powerful.
Well, one of the things that I have a good friend of mine who used to be the dean of the School of Business at RIT, and we talk about all the time about the kids and the expectations that we have for them, and their and they're feeling a responsibility to make the parent happy. The parent is proud of them when they go to this school or that school, which you got to come across that a lot. I mean, do you have parents that are sort of like that? They're pushing the kids to go to one school rather than another because of a prestigious name?
Well, a story that's worth repeating is where my grandson graduated from a school in Maryland, and we went to his graduation ceremony, and it was on Cal Ripken Field. So we're all sitting in the backstop area, 300 kids, big high school graduating class. The principal walks out, and the first thing he said was, "We're proud of the fact that at Bel Air High School, 31% of the kids out of 300 are going to an Ivy League school." And my wife said, "Paul, don't stand up and say anything." I almost screamed. What has that got to do with anything? 31 out of 340 are going to Ivy League schools. That's an absurd measurement, right? But that's what drives educators. I mean, and I don't mean to criticize them, but we want to brag about the fact we got another kid in Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. Well, unfortunately, in my world, we got too many people in the government in Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. They don't know. They've never had a job. In fact, I heard somebody say the other day, nobody in government, or I heard this guy from Shark Tank say, nobody in government has ever made a payroll. Dom, you know what I'm talking about. That's a problem.
Well, there's a story about an iron worker going to Ted Kennedy one day and said, "Ted, is it true you've never worked a day in your life?" And Ted Kennedy goes, "Well, that's true." He goes, and the iron worker goes, "Well, it's not all that's cracked up to be."
That's a great line.
We'll be talking more about this right after this. This is Don from my friend Jim Shelley and his Fanatics Pub and Blue Stage in Lima. Go down 390 to exit 10, east a couple of miles, and you're there. And there is where we'll be having our Christmas show, our live Christmas show on December 10th. Jimmy Highsmith is the headliner with his cool jazz. We'll have celebrity guests and performances by my Middle Finger Lake Arts players. The $20 ticket price goes directly to the Rochester Rotary Sunshine Camp. Get your tickets at fanaticsPub.com. That's fanaticsPub.com. Well, welcome back. We're talking to Paul Celuch, who has a company, College Assistant Plus, which helps you pick a college that you can afford for your child. So, Paul, let's do a little retail here. Let's give your web address. You can leave off the www and your telephone number so people can get a hold of you.
Sure. It's College Assistance, ASSITANCE plus PLUS.com. And my phone number is 585-202-1636. That's 202-1636.
I'm turning you into a radio guy. 202-1636.
Yeah,
It's 202 in Paramus, New Jersey. It's 202-1636. But College Assistance Plus.com.
Correct.
But this ability of you to handle some of these financial things, and we were talking before about even some of the smaller things. You were talking about a roommate. Causing a problem.
Well, we were talking about how expensive roommate. I say with tongue in cheek, you could stay at a Hyatt 2 meals a day for what you're paying for a suite for your daughter who's with three other young ladies. So I had a gentleman call me, one of my clients from Honey Falls, and he said, I just got a bill from last year from a local school, and they billed me $500 room damage. And I said, did they say what it was for? And he said, no. So I reached out to the school, and they said, well, somebody opened the door and put a doorknob through the drywall. So I said, well, we're not going to pay that. And I negotiated for some other things and got it waived. But my thinking was, I'll bet you the other 3 people in that room got $500 room damage too and never negotiated for it. If you don't ask for it, Don, very much like the car business, right? It's not, you said earlier, it's not the sticker price. It's how much you actually pay. And,
right.
We typically get $5,000 to $7,000 off with our negotiating strategy off of any price they offer. Every college will offer a discount initially, but then the real challenge is get below that and get a better deal. So that's what we do.
Well, the other thing, I mean, this is another thing, sort of like the elephant in the room. The high schools are all judged on how many kids go to college, right?
Exactly.
And going to college, is not necessarily I mean, I am a real big believer in the trades. I absolutely am. I mean, if you are, and I always use the example of a diesel mechanic. I mean, if I have a diesel mechanic at my shop, that gal or guy is highly educated. They are technical. They are precise, accurate. They're thinkers. They are problem solvers, and they're making lots of money for a job that if you don't like working where you are, you just go someplace else because they're in high demand. And then you find, I had a young man working for me, he's 24 years old, married, has a house, has a kid, has a beautiful young wife. He's got everything going for him and a boat and no college debt.
Right.
But the schools are getting judged by how many kids go to college.
Right.
So that's got to be a problem too.
Well, I think it's go to college, and as we said earlier, the average person doesn't really understand why he or she is
going to college
because they don't extrapolate that into what my real job is going to be, and we really try to address that up front. That's very important.
Well, now you get into almost like philosophy. Like, what is I tell the kids when I teach at RIT every once in a while, what's the currency of your life? Is your currency of your life actually currency?
Exactly.
Because then you're never going to have enough.
Yeah, right.
And what people will tell me is that sometimes it's the piece of paper. They get the piece of paper and they say they graduated from here or here or here or here. And to your point is that what does that piece of paper do for you?
Right.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't know, and I think that makes all the sense in the world, that you can go to a community college and because I'm assuming this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you've gotten good grades at a community college, this means you showed up on time, you got your work done, you have what it takes to be successful in college, and so you're that much more attractive as an applicant to
a transfer.
And
Dom, as you remember, everything is the first year or two is gen ed courses, so you can get those out of the way, if you will, at a community college. Why pay for a premium at a 4-year school when you don't have to? And when you marry that up with, I don't know why I'm really going. Okay, that's understandable. Let us help you talk to some people who are doing what you aspire to do, but then let's minimize the cost. One of the biggest issues is with college, I think, the easy availability of loans. I mean, if you're breathing, you can get a loan. So the assumption is we also have customized loan agreements we've created with companies where what happens is when a student takes out a loan as a freshman, the parent usually co-signs for the whole loan. You know what co-signing is. Most people don't. I have to educate people on what co-signing means. Yeah. But we have a lending facility where if your student is doing A or B work after your sophomore year, that you only have to co-sign for 75%. After the junior year, you only have to co-sign for 50%. In the senior year, the student has all the loans. Now, you're not trying to hurt the student. What you want to do is plant the seed in their mind that you got to pay this back, because most parents are cavalier about the loans. It's like, well, everybody does it. Well, everybody does a lot of things, but a $1.8 trillion is a lot of loan debt.
So let me ask you, what's your opinion about this loan forgiveness thing that's been kicking around? I mean, it's not now that Trump is going to be in office. I can't see this happening. But what was the original thing? And what do you think?
Let me throw that back to you, Dom. Yeah. Do you want to pay for other kids to go to college? I mean, it's ludicrous. And the only reason I think it was done was political capital. I mean, that's what Biden was trying to buy votes. But I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Now, for some workers like public service workers, if you want to help people out that are in low-paying jobs that we need, that's one thing. But just this across-the-board loan forgiveness is a ludicrous idea.
Well, it's buying something and expecting somebody else to pay for it.
Exactly.
I mean, and what that does is that the people that have made decisions. Now, I understand that, somebody gets seduced into thinking that they can actually get a job in puppetry and whatever. Okay, yeah. I got that, but that's not my responsibility.
No.
And if I'm a a family with a limited income and made the decision not to take that jump,
right?
Why should I be penalized? Why should my taxes go for that?
Exactly. I mean, like you mentioned earlier about the story about the young man who's doing very well, never went to college. Why should he be penalized? Because he's doing well and he did it on his own. Why should he have to pay back student loans? I think it's just ludicrous. And that belief allows the colleges to raise their prices more. Mm-hmm. I mean, colleges have gone up a ridiculous amount. I mean, they go up almost 20% a year. And that's what else goes up that, at that rate.
I'm laughing now because, I'm back to this thing where, the parents say, you can do anything that you want. Yeah, right. You can do anything. No, you can't. You can't. I told one of my daughters one day, you're never going to be shortstop for the Yankees. You're the wrong sex. You don't have a big league arm. and Jeter's going to be be there for a while. You can't. No, you cannot do that. But again, you need somebody to help you through this stuff. And you seem like you have a very well-grounded a business going there.
Well, it's a fun business. It's very gratifying. As you know, we talked about things where you help other people. I welcome the opportunity to help other people. And I think the experience and data information that we have accumulated over 20 years makes us so much more precise and effective in helping families.
Well, and I can see by what you say you're gonna what your fee is. Quite frankly, it sounds very reasonable.
Oh, it is reasonable.
Compared to the, you're talking about maybe $250,000 worth of thing, and a debt. To have somebody take a look at this. I was. I was going through this, Anita and I, ourselves, back when, and I don't wish we knew you.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this. This is Dom Jennifer from Myers Creative. People get DNA tested to see where their ancestors came from, and that's all you get, where they came from. How about if you could actually have a video of past family? Well, you can't do that for the past, but you could do it for the future. John Myers can visit your home and video a professional and thoughtful interview for you to pass down to generations. Book one for yourself or give one as a Christmas gift to mom and dad to talk about their story. Or both. Go to lifeinterviews.com. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable, and we're talking to Paul Celuch, who has a company, College Assistant Plus, who helps people pick colleges for their children.
So much. When my oldest son went to college, it was $16,000 a year. So say the whole school experience was $100,000. Now that same school would be $250,000. So it's a big difference.
My student loan. This shows you what a dinosaur I am. I'll never forget this. It was $72.56 a month.
Yeah.
Back in the dinosaur days. That was my student loan.
But Dom, and from your business experience, many people don't understand what co-signing means.
Right.
But co-signing, that's the story I said earlier about the 55-year-old woman who's still paying back her student loans on an undergrad degree, not a graduate degree.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and actually, I'm writing a book about how to buy a car and not get taken for a ride.
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah,
it'll be done by the end of the year. But that is like 4 pages in one paragraph is co-signing. People don't understand that you're co-signing. Well, no. That means you are responsible.
Right.
So it's affecting your credit score, your burden. You're taking. I said in my book, I said it would be better to loan them a big down payment and then you're only responsible for that than co-signing. And the amount of money, like I said, is just extraordinary.
Well, I've heard colleges say this. Now, we're going to give you so much in grants and scholarships, but the rest will be loans that we're going to give you. The colleges don't give you loans. Uh-huh. Those loans are government loans that taxpayers end up funding. But the colleges, the verbiage they use is, well, we're going to lend you the money. And so it's kind of mixed up, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about how colleges are really funded.
And what agency actually does that money come from?
Well, it's the the Department of Education. Those are government loans that are funded, through the Department of Education, and I hope we do away with the Department of Education.
Okay,
but,
so that's where I was going with this.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if they do away with the Department of Education,
Yeah.
so what is somebody said?
Well, somebody said the other day, you may know this, only 7% of government employees go to work every day in Washington. The rest of them work from home. They've never come back after COVID. 7%. Now think about you've been to Washington I have many times. I work there. So think about all the vacant buildings that are there.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope Musk and Vivek really pay attention to.
Well, it's the other services, it's the restaurants and the businesses that are around those buildings. My daughter lived in D.C. for quite a while. Now she's living in South Bend, which is completely different.
That's different.
Yeah, it's completely different. But what other advice do you have for people, or an anecdotal story of something or other
I just think
you can tell people?
There's so many stories about mistakes we try to prevent. But that applying to a college, the car metaphor I used on is, as I said, with the Acura and a Lexus or Mercedes. If you find a college that competes with the school you're looking at, the chances of you getting a good offer, just like, in the car business, if somebody came to you and said, hey, we got a better deal from someplace else, you gotta sharpen your pencil. We find that works all the time, and typically we get another $4,000 to $7,000 more off the price of the original offer. So, but people don't do that. Nobody goes back to a school and says, I think I can get a better deal. They just don't, because the college will say, we'll make up the difference with the student loans.
Which really isn't doing anything.
No, it's not.
Well, it's like a balloon payment on a car loan.
Yeah.
Your payment is $299 a month, but at the end of the 60 months, you still owe $6,000.
Well, the real shame of this is, talk about lack of information. When you sign for a federal loan from the college, the college itself gets a 2% fee for filling out the paperwork. So if you sign for a $20,000 loan at a federal student loan, the college will get 2% of that as a fee for filling out the paperwork. If a bank did that, they'd put them in jail.
Hold on a second. So they are motivated to make you.
Absolutely.
They're motivated to make you borrow money because first of all, they're getting the money that you're borrowing.
Right.
And then second of all, they're getting a bump on top of that.
They get a finder's fee. A fee for filling out the paperwork administratively. 2%.
Oh, and people complain about car dealers.
Oh,
I mean,
but there's nowhere in the paperwork is that articulated. I mean, it's at the bottom in a little bitty fine print.
The only thing they're not doing is charging you for rust proofing.
Oh man, I'll tell you, it's the most misunderstood thing, and I think the colleges prey on the emotion that we love our kids and we think we're doing the best for them.
Yeah, and I see that, and that it just makes me sad. Oh, it makes me sad when we love our kids so much and we want to see them happy and we want to see them productive, and we do this and we, honey, you can do whatever you want and we'll help you with it and whatever. And then you get into a situation where it just blows up on them later on, and it's just sad. I mean, it is absolutely a travesty what's happened with this.
Well,
stuff,
when you own the car business, you kept all the inventory shined and clean. Mm-hmm. That's why people want to take your kids to a college visit. They put out their best. They put out the best of everything. Great food. The buildings are all beautiful. It's all a marketing effort.
Well, I had another person that in your line of business on years ago. We're like on our 330th show so far. Mm-hmm. And I had a discussion with her about a particular college. We won't say what college it is. I said, but you go to the dining hall and they have a station for Asian food, and they have one for Italian food, and they have one for Mexican food, whatever. Yep. And the dorms have maid service.
Yeah. Oh.
Maid service. And I said, well, when I was in college, I mean, we were making grilled cheese sandwiches from the irons, laundry line irons or whatever, and then if you had maybe a black and white TV, that was a big deal. Everybody would be there. And what she said to me is that we find that children who live in privileged households do better in an environment of privileged education.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but my reaction to that, the privilege that they lived in is the reward of their parents' behavior, not their behavior.
Right.
So they've become to expect this, even though they didn't earn this. Right. And I just question that philosophy. Yeah. I just question that philosophy of sending your child someplace that's all, it's Disneyland.
Yeah.
When they didn't earn Disneyland.
For puppetry. No, you're right, Dom. But that's why I say, before you visit a school, talk to us, because we can tell you, not to visit, but we can tell you the other schools that you want to put on your radar screen, so you have that contra offer, right? I mean, you can send your child to Bucknell or Cornell or Providence or Lehigh or Boston University, Boston College, but talk to us about how to get a better deal. That's what it's all about. And by the way, because of the transfer metaphor that I said earlier, a kid, if a student does better, or does well, I should say, in their first year, they're worth more to that college in the second year. Mm-hmm. And you should get that from the college because you haven't attrited. You see what I mean? You've succeeded. Mm-hmm. And nobody thinks that way. They're just happy. Oh, they passed. Great. We'll get the same deal. No, we don't do that. We go back for a better deal. So
let's tell everybody about your website again.
Okay, sure. It's collegeassistanceplus.com. And my contact number is 585-202-1636.
202-1636. Now, obviously, hours. Do you go visit people too?
Oh, yeah, we do that a lot. Less after COVID. It was really amazing.
Oh, yeah.
People became reluctant to come to seminars, which we do a lot of, but. I've been all over the Northeast, and because we had all the franchises at one time, I've traveled all over the country. So
I can say thank you for coming in, Paul. And one more time, let's give them that web address.
Sure. It's collegeassistanceplus.com. And my contact number is 585-202-1636.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every Saturday from 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham 1180. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.